One of my big gripes with ranked multiplayer and the CDL is that the game will launch and then you'll have your ranked restrictions, your ranked maps, your ranked game modes, and that's it. And it won't change the entire year. And that would get really old for me and a lot of people. Activision devs do not play their own game.
3,000 devs can't figure out how to add a reconnect feature to a AAA title, I guess. I don't know.
Because Infinity Ward doesn't tell their consumers anything.
Maybe that'll take some of the sweats away from Shoot House.
You can cope about that for sure.
Thanks for tweeting, at least. Thanks for doing more than Infinity Ward has done. They just keep tweeting about the soccer bundles in the store.
Things that are bad. We got a couple words. Why don't you kick it off, Tanner?
This is going to be a longer section than the first part you guys heard.
Change it, obviously, of course. We are live, boys and girls. Welcome to the Dropshot Call of Duty Podcast, episode number 418. My name is Casey, also known as Razinon.
Why is bro
today,
doing a chuckle?
Discord. Today, I am joined by Tanner.
Yeah, that's me.
We're back. And it's been a while. It's been a whole week, in fact. So welcome to the show. Welcome back to all of you. Sorry if you've missed us, and sorry we didn't do an episode on Saturday. We planned on it, but the IRS had other plans for us. And the giant boot of the federal government won, and we had to just not do a podcast because we spent, I don't know how many hours doing tax stuff. I personally spent at least 7, literally.
Over that weekend, yeah, at least 7 or 8, yeah.
Yeah, it was really bad and not good. So on Saturday, we had some, I don't know what exactly happened, but we had like more questions and more things we had to figure out. And the deadline was coming up for filing, obviously, the 15th. And Tanner had like, obligations on, he worked Saturday, and then I think he had obligations Sunday and Monday, and we didn't know how much time we were going to need. So he said, let's just skip this episode today, cancel it, so we can figure all this stuff out. And I'm glad we did, because if we hadn't done that, I don't know if we would have had it. I mean, I would have had enough time, but like it would have been cutting it real close. So anyway, that's why we canceled. So sorry about that, but we're back now. And we should be on our normal, regularly scheduled programming once again. So thank you for your patience on this matter. Yeah. Now, today, on the other hand, we have a couple of things to talk about. We've got some announcements. We've been getting the Patreon rolled back up. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then getting into the topic for today's episode, which is, patch notes, news, upcoming changes. Not really much going on this week. So there were a couple little patches. We're going to go into those. A couple little news items on like the CDL and stuff, which is kind of interesting and actually good to see. And I'm surprised by it, frankly. But that's going to be a cool little topic to talk about a little bit. And then also, I think we'll talk a little bit about a new game that is all the buzz today. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, cute little episode today. Before we get into it, as I said, we have a couple of announcements. First and foremost, welcome to our newest upgraded Damascus patron, Winter Soldier, 5.0 KD. Okay, don't say your KD in your Patreon name, man. You can't do that. That's cheating. That guy, Winter Soldier, you are very proud of yourself, aren't you, buddy? Do you think he's telling lies, or do you think he's dead-assed? What are your thoughts?
I think he's telling lies, yeah.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward telling lies, yeah.
I want to say he's in the Discord.
Do you think people would do that? Go on the internet and tell lies?
Dude, I ran into some kid the other day and he had 3 KD in his name. I was like, bro, no, that's too low. Don't be putting 3 KD in your name. That's too low. If you're going to try to brag, I would say 5 maybe. I would say if you want to brag, we're talking like 6 and above. 6 and above, you know? Breadman's got like a 9 KD. He can put his in his clan tag. That's fine.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think if you have a 3 KD, you can absolutely brag, but not to this level. Yeah. It's not
you're
like
not putting
it in your name. Yeah, exactly. It's not putting it in your name level, but you know, if someone asks you, you can flex on them. It's a very high KD. But yeah, don't put it in your name, certainly. Especially if you're lying. Like Winter Soldier, our newest Damascus patron, is doing. Yeah. Welcome aboard, buddy. Thank you very much, King, for upgrading to Damascus. Very kind of you, sir. And we appreciate it. We appreciate it very much. Now, speaking of the Patreon, as I said, we have been firing that sucker back up. And we just released 2 Patreon episodes this week. This morning, in fact, our first gold episode, so a bonus episode for every single patron, went live for this month. And it was about Urzikstan. A little fire brainstorm on Urzikstan. And I thought it was really good, actually. Because even though Season 3 was woefully lacking in changes to Urzikstan specifically, there were a lot of other changes that have made Urzikstan feel pretty different. And therefore, there was a lot to talk about. So a couple examples are the new squad assemble mechanic. There wasn't too much to say there, but it's actually a pretty interesting discussion. So we talked about that for a little bit and how to maximize that. They changed around where buy stations are. So we also gave you guys the sauce on the new drop spot that I found, the patented drop spot that I found, which has been working very well for us. And then also, more than that, I think more impactfully than that, Season 3 brought some weapon balance changes that are quite relevant on Urzikstan and have been changing what people are using completely on Urzikstan, both in terms of primaries and secondaries and even snipers. And then also the lethal changes. We talked about that a lot because with Season 3, for those of you who may not remember, they nerfed the Semtex. They nerfed frag grenades like yesterday. We'll get into that. And then they buffed every other lethal. So now it's like a really interesting question of what lethal to use on big map. And that has not been true for a very long time, I feel like. In most Warzone kind of metas, especially on big map, it's really always been like one thing. Like it used to be C4 way back in the day, and then they nerfed it, and then it was like Semtex. Everyone used Semtex.
Yep.
And then that was kind of it for like 2 years. But now there are like a bunch of good options depending on what you want. And I think we found the secret sauce. So there was a lot to say on lethals as well that we talked about in that bonus episode. And then, of course, again, what weapons we're using and what weapons you should be using, both secondaries and primaries. That changed quite a bit. So again, even though Season 3 really didn't bring anything specifically different or new to Urzikstan, with the one exception of like the buy station shuffle, it actually plays a lot differently than it did before Season 3. So there was a lot to say. It was fertile ground for an episode, and I really enjoyed doing it. And it's now live.
Fertile ground. That's a new one. That's interesting.
Yeah. Fertile ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we impregnated it with a bonus episode. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I liked
Latina ground.
There was a lot to talk about with the lethals, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, there was.
That was a good discussion for it, I think. Yeah. And I'm back on my preferred lethal, which is the sauce we found. Yeah. That is definitely
we found the
lethal.
secret sauce.
Yeah. That thing goes crazy. But yeah, other than that, actually a lot of the things we talked about in there too, I've tried since then. A couple of the guns I tried that we talked about, they both suck, so didn't end up mattering. They're terrible. But yeah,
really?
So pretty much yeah, all the things that we wanted to try, I've pretty much already tried. But yeah, I thought that was a good episode. And our next episode or two will both finally be about Rebirth.
Yes, they will be. Yeah. So if you are a patron or have been considering joining for ad-free and early access public episodes and bonus episodes, here's a little cherry on top for you. We just did that Warzone one, which is now live. You can get it right away if you become a patron. But also, we will be doing some Rebirth content on the Patreon this month as well before we close out. So those will be rolling out next week. Probably pretty early next week too. So I'm more excited to talk about that than Tanner is. But hopefully, there are some more changes to Rebirth and then we can enjoy playing it more than we currently do. And again, if you want details on all that, you can go listen to that last episode. And then also for our Damascus patrons or would-be Damascus patrons, we did our behind the scenes as well. That went live 2 days ago. And that episode was also fun and exciting because we had a lot to talk about there as well. A lot of tax talk, which doesn't sound interesting, but from a parasocial perspective, it is because that's why we canceled that episode, just how we've been doing it. The TLDR is that we actually, go give your closest, nearest federal agent a fragmentation grenade. I'm not saying to pull the pin before you throw it at him, but just say, hey, check this out.
Into him. Yeah.
Hey, check this out, and lob a fragmentation grenade at him.
So you can catch it and then take a peek and then hand it back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I didn't say pull the pin before you do it, and I'm certainly not advocating for domestic. But yeah, just saying, because fragmentation grenades are interesting, whether you pull the pin or not.
Yeah.
And if you don't pull the pin, then that's totally legal and fine to do. So you should do that.
Yeah.
And then if you, forget one piece of the frag before you give it to him, if you omit some core component, then, that would be a shame. And you shouldn't do that because that's illegal. And we don't advocate for things that are illegal or that would get us demonetized on this YouTube channel. But nonetheless, it was a fun behind the scenes episode. We talked about taxes. We talked about some other stuff too. Actually, we talked a fair amount about the direction of the podcast for this month and next month as well. We have some interesting ideas cooking. We went into those. So if you want to see kind of where our content's going to be going for the foreseeable future, which I think are in exciting directions, you can go listen to that if you're a Damascus patron or if you become one.
Yeah.
So
a lot of IRL stuff. Oh, and the long awaited Tanner's most hated Twitter accounts of the month that started.
Oh yeah.
Didn't do a whole lot of research into that, but I will, for next month, I will get a whole list going. I'll add to it as the month goes on. People will go higher on that list. They'll go lower. And I'll give you my 5 most hated Twitter accounts of the month. So there we go. If you guys want to hear that, BTS, behind the scenes.
True. And other than that, let's get into it. If you're listening for the jingle, here it is. Such a bop. Okay. Today, we have an episode about Call of Duty, starting with some patch notes. So, as per usual, we did get some patches this week, and they've separated it into Warzone and multiplayer, as usual. We only got one patch this week for multiplayer, and here it is. This was on Tuesday, the 16th. Probably not too much to get into here, but there were a lot of UI fixes or additions or whatever. Some other things. I'm trying to see if they mention fixing the alignment on the Moors here. I don't see it yet. Some weapon balance as well for a couple ARs. Not going to get into those. Same with subs. Shotguns. Here we go. The Moors optic misalignment is fixed in multiplayer and in Warzone, at least according to the patch notes.
Yeah.
And I believe them. They haven't really told many lies in patch notes this year. A couple, but usually
they've lied. Yeah, not as often though.
Yeah, certainly not to Infinity Ward levels. So I believe it, but this is one of the big things that's stopped me from trying the Moors in Warzone, actually, is because this optic misalignment was always misaligned no matter what optic you had. So there was no way around it. It was unavoidable. And I didn't want to have to do that in Warzone. So I'm excited. I'm glad that they fixed it. I'm going to give it a try. And there were some other things as well. Couple
I was watching
little balance changes,
Metaphor
whatever.
for a while yesterday. He thinks it's not actually fixed. He was complaining about it for like 30 minutes.
Interesting.
He was saying that you could literally just go into the firing range and test it yourself and you can see it's still not working. He was saying though, like some optics seem a lot better now, but then some of them still seem really bad and misaligned. So I would not doubt at all if they only fix like the default optic or something and like none of the other ones.
Definitely possible.
That would not surprise me at all, because he was even like, there were some times too watching a stream where I'd be like, yeah, it looks like he should hit that, and he'd be like quick scoping and fire right away and miss a shot, and he's like, have you guys ever seen me miss this many snipes in a row? Like, this is obviously still bugged, but you know, it could just be him, so I'm not really sure. I haven't used it personally, but just something to keep an eye out for. It might not actually be fixed. We'll see.
Yeah. Maybe test it in the firing range, like Metaphor suggested. But anyway, if it is still broken, I would imagine they're going to fix it. And then limited time weapon evaluation. So I don't know what this means. So I'm going to... Is this the same thing as those tweets?
I didn't realize I put it in here. Yeah, just read this part.
Okay,
then,
yeah. So... this is pretty interesting for you ranked gamers out there. And I think there are probably some of you listening who play like ranked multiplayer. Treyarch, Sledgehammer, and the CDL are excited to share that we will begin a weapon evaluation this week after the success of our previous map evaluation. Starting April 16th, so the day of this patch, Tuesday. So this is now live. The following weapons will be unrestricted and available in MW3 ranked play loadouts until April 23rd. That's pretty interesting. Here's the list. The BP-50, the Holger 5.56, the MTZ 5.56, the HRM-9, and the RAM-9. Your feedback and gameplay data during this evaluation will help the CDL and our teams decide if they are added to the official CDL competitive rule set at a later date. And then besides that, there were some bug fixes, but that's pretty much it there. So this is really cool. And I don't know when, if ever, I'm sure they've done it at some points. I don't follow the CDL or ranked multiplayer very closely, as you guys know. Neither of us do. But one of my big gripes, and I actually think I randomly mentioned this pretty recently, like inside of the last 2 weeks. I don't know if it was publicly or on a Patreon episode, but one of my big gripes with ranked multiplayer and the CDL is that the game will launch, and then you'll have your ranked restrictions, your ranked maps, your ranked game modes, and that's it. And it won't change the entire year. And that would get really old for me and a lot of people, because if you're a hardcore ranked multiplayer gamer, then you don't care about new seasons. You don't care about seasons reloaded. You don't care about remastered maps. You don't care about new maps. They do add new maps sometimes, but not usually. Like, you don't really care when new content comes out because it's all restricted in ranked. And like, that really sucks. And I wish they didn't do that. And this is a step, in my view, in the right direction, because they want to look at, some of these are not DLC guns, post-launch guns, like the Holger and the MTZ 556. Those were in at launch. So, but the BP50, the HRM, and the Ram 9, these are all post-launch guns that were added after launch, and they usually just auto-restrict those, which they've done. But the fact that they're evaluating them to maybe not only bring them to ranked multiplayer full-time, but the CDL full-time, I think is really cool, because it freshens up an otherwise very stagnant game mode that I think would make it a lot more fun. And evidently they had done this with maps as well. I didn't know they had done a map evaluation. I guess we had glossed over it. But like, adding new maps and new guns on top of like continuing to do weapon balance and stuff, so not just every new thing is restricted, I think that's great for ranked and even the CDL to some degree. Although the CDL, I think it matters less, but that doesn't matter for any of you. None of you are in the CDL. So I think this is really cool if you enjoy ranked multiplayer. And I hope they continue to do this, especially because if a new gun comes out and it's too good for ranked multiplayer, nerf it for everyone and then don't restrict it. That's what you should do. That should always be the solution. It's pretty dumb that they're like, oh, we just released the HRM9. We're restricting it in ranked multiplayer, though, because it's too good. But we're not going to nerf it, so everyone else who plays unranked multiplayer or Warzone just has this like overpowered gun that should be nerfed, but they don't do that. Like, why not just balance it instead? So then the ranked players can get new content, and then we also have a more balanced weapon meta. And it looks like that's kind of a that's kind of the direction they're taking a step in with this, and I think it's a really neat idea. And they're using that limited time kind of, I don't know if this is a limited time playlist technically, but like, they're using online as like a testing ground. I think it's really cool. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, how does it even work in multiplayer ranks right now? Can you literally only choose the MCW and the Rival 9 or whatever they use? Is that it? Does anybody know?
I don't know how many guns are unrestricted, but it's not many, yeah.
Yeah, because if they're really following like the GAs or whatever of the CDL, which I thought they did, then yeah, it would be literally every gun is restricted except for those two. Oh, Sub had like maybe 4, and MCW is the only AR. Okay. Yeah, this is cool for them then. Yeah. That's dope. I wonder if the CDL would ever actually, if the players and teams would ever actually agree to either allow any of these or just swap to any of them entirely.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but yeah, it's cool that they're doing this for sure.
Yeah. I think it matters more for like the multiplayer player base, like the ranked multiplayer player base, obviously, because that's just so many more people. And you're right. Like, even so, let's say they finish this weapon evaluation and they say, you know what? The BP50 is in fact balanced enough. We are going to allow it in ranked multiplayer and the CDL official rule set. It's entirely possible, and I might even argue likely, that all the teams say, cool, it's technically allowed, but we're GAing it anyway. Like, you're right. That's entirely possible. And if they want to do that, sure. But even if the CDL GA something, I kind of changed my opinion on this because this was not originally what I said. Even if the CDL GA something, I don't necessarily think that should apply to ranked multiplayer. Like, if they GA the BP50 after this evaluation, if Activision decides they're going to allow it in the CDL rule set, technically. If it gets GA'd, I think they should just continue to allow it in online ranked. Because... it's just, again, if it's overpowered, nerf it or balance it. And then also, you got to give people some variety online. Like in the CDL, I get it. Have it be super restrictive, whatever. They're not going to get bored because they're competing. So they kind of want like one gun that's like the main gun they use so they can train with it for 9 months before whatever. The CDL LAN in someone's basement with no audience. We'll get into it. But for online, it's just you're punishing your player base. It's like so boring. I can't imagine playing ranked multiplayer for a whole year on any COD game ever, no matter how fun or good the COD game is. Like MW3 is really fun. It's really good. And if I were like a controller main, I might play a lot of ranked multiplayer, actually, for a while. But eventually I would get tired of it. No matter how good I am at it, no matter how good the game mechanics are, which they are very good, no matter how good the weapon balance is, the visibility, all that, I can't play the same exact thing on the same maps with the same guns and the same attachments and the same perks and the same kill streaks for 9 months or 12 months.
Sounds terrible,
or whatever.
yeah.
It's just like I don't have the wherewithal to do that. I can't believe anyone does. But that's just how like ranked multiplayer has always been. I don't know.
I think they do get bored probably, but also like I understand it from a balancing perspective because surely one of these ARs will be a lot better than the MCW, I would imagine. Because we don't really follow any of this stuff, but I see some tweets every once in a while, and like I've seen a lot of people talking about how slow the time to kill is on the MCW, and I've seen like little clips of like a rival gunning an MCW, which is an SMG gunning an AR at like AR ranges. So I see a lot of people complaining about how bad the MCW is. So it would be kind of interesting if one of these ARs took over and, changed that up. But yeah, even if it does, then I think they're still just going to go with one gun. Like ranked play, it'd be crazy to play public ranked play with one gun for the whole year, or two guns, I guess. Yeah. But then also like a lot of those kids playing ranked play are like little CDL wannabes, so they're only going to use the guns that the CDL players are using anyways.
True.
So then, if you have unrestricted guns that are obviously better than the MCW, but the CDL uses the MCW instead, then these kids are going to still want to copy their favorite CDL player, and they're going to be getting gunned to like the Holger or MTZ. That's probably way better, and then you have balancing issues. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it makes total sense to have a bunch of guns restricted like it is currently, but I'm with you. I can't imagine playing that for a whole year and not getting bored of that. I can't imagine doing that for a season.
I know, even a whole season. It's like
it's incredibly repetitive. I mean, at least in like Warzone, people use different gun builds. It's like I swear in the CDL, it's like they all basically use the same gun build because all that's restricted too. It's like Warzone, you got people with different gun builds, different perks, different lethals. At least there's some variety. This is like you use the exact items they use in the CDL and nothing else, and you do that for a whole year. It's crazy.
Yeah. Not to mention there's like one lethal allowed. there's one tactical allowed. There's 2 field upgrades allowed. Like there's nothing.
Yeah. What was it last year when we played a little bit of MW2 ranked mode that people would get mad about one of the guns we would use, so we would purposely use it?
Oh, God.
You remember that?
Yes, I do.
What was the gun people would people would call you a lot of names for using a gun
like
that was a little bit better.
545 or something?
Yeah, I don't remember, but people would be pissed. Like
Yeah.
they would trash talk
They
you
would
for
get
using
so
a gun.
mad. Yeah.
Yeah, that
God,
was
what
fun.
was it, dude?
That was fun.
I remember exactly what you're talking about, though. Yeah. Yep. They would get so mad.
It does seem like it was one of the cast-offs. I think you may be right.
Yeah. Something like that. Anyway, I don't know. That was really fun. Yeah, it was great to do that. But anyway, I think this is cool. I think it's a cool idea. And if the CDL is super stubborn and they just GA everything anyway, then that's their prerogative. But I think it's still a good idea from Activision. So that's cool.
Yeah.
But moving on to Warzone. Patch notes.
Warzone.
Do you see this big R original symbol? Is this on purpose? Why are this so big? Why is this trademark so big?
That is not like that on my screen.
Yeah, okay.
It's white and it's small. That's weird. Even the TM is white, a different font.
Yeah, super weird. Anyway, whatever. Warzone patch notes. So we got, in this case, again, just one patch for the week on Tuesday, April 16th. And we've got a couple things to talk about here. So first, some lethal updates. The C4 reverted the change that was preventing the C4 from being detonated mid-flight. So if you tried to use the C4 since it got buffed and you couldn't detonate it mid-flight for a while, that's fixed now. That was unintentional, I guess, or something. I don't really know, but you can use them now. So there you go.
I think it was Jakin or somebody in Discord said that it's because that was intended for only multiplayer where it has to hit the ground before you detonate it, but they accidentally put that in Warzone too. Yeah, so then they reverted that change, but that's still how multiplayer works. That sounds right. I think I remember reading that.
Yeah. So there you go. And then more interestingly, I think frag grenades. Decreased intermediate explosive damage radius to 3.8 meters, down from 4.9 meters. I think this is an interesting change. So first of all, how did they determine that this is a change that should be made? That's a curious question. And I have that question all the time when they make changes to this game. Like, why did you think to do this? Not that it's a bad change necessarily, but like, why did this occur to you? But a couple important notes about this. They didn't change the overall explosion radius because the frag grenade has 3 radii. It has minimum damage radius, which is the farthest, and then it has intermediate, which is what got reduced, and then it has close. So a frag grenade can do 3 different damages to you, and then a separate 3 different damages to you if you have EOD. Depending on how close you are to the frag when it blows up. So now, basically what they did was they increased the area where you're in the minimum damage range of the frag. So if the frag's max damage range was 10 meters, it's still 10 meters, but now to take that second damage step of increased damage, you have to be 3.8 meters from it instead of 4.9 meters from it. And then it still has the same close range damage radius where if if it blows up at your feet, it's still going to do the same amount of damage. So it is a nerf. It's not a big nerf though, but it's a relevant nerf, I think, because you might think 3.8 and 4.9 meters is not a big deal, because if you think of that in terms of like a weapons damage range, yeah, that's 1.1 meters. But a radius is a lot different than a damage range. So it's a lot more relevant that it's a 1.1, what would that be? Square meters, actually, where it does less damage. Like, this is a lot more relevant than it might sound, I think. It doesn't make frags like useless or anything, but it does make them worse. I don't know how much worse it makes them, though. You would just have to ask, how often were my frags landing between 3.8 and 4.9 meters away from people I wanted to damage? That's the question. And I have no idea.
Yeah.
And you can't even test that. There's no theater mode. So like, I don't know, but I don't know why they did this either. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, they must have just been getting, too much data showing that frags were essentially leaving everybody one shot probably, so they wanted to reduce that range a little bit. So yeah, people have a better chance of getting away from it or something. Because yeah, that 1.1 meters, that's a pretty substantial difference when you think like a lot of the situations you're using a frag, you're like right below a roof. That's like a 3-story roof maybe. You basically throw 2 looking straight up in the air to get them on the roof. So it's like that person's already going to be in a small area. So cutting that damage range from 4.9 to 3.8 could be a pretty big difference. Yeah. But then also you do have to think half the time when you're throwing frags, at least me personally, I usually like always throw 2 at one time. So a lot of times you're going to get a down anyways, because they're both going to hit them. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't used them since this, but yeah, they went from, frags, they needed a nerf from when they had buffed them, whatever that was, a month ago, because they were insane.
Yeah, they were
did
overpowered.
That.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
So I think they're in a pretty good spot, honestly, still. But I haven't been using them. I've been using something else, which is, of course, the secret sauce that we talked about in our last Patreon episode, available to every patron. But anyway, there you go. If you were on frags, maybe reconsider. Now, some weapon balance changes as well. Nothing too crazy. So the MTZ 556 got a tiny bit of bullet velocity. Don't think it's relevant. The Holger 556 got a change to its recoil. Adjusted recoil and gun kick to decrease deviation, allowing a more predictable pattern. This may have been relevant, and it was something we've been meaning to try. And I believe, Tanner, you tried this today. Is that correct?
I tried it yesterday. So I tried the same build that I already had, which was with a the 3x optic, the Choreo Eagle Eye.
Mm-hmm.
It felt literally no different. Yeah. And then I was like, okay. So then I put the Jack glassless on it, and it feels like it doesn't really move much at all. But I don't know how that was before, because I don't know. No, I think I did try the glassless before. But I don't know. My thing is the gun still just feels terrible. The fire rate's too slow. So like when somebody's running left to right and you're shooting at them, you just miss so many shots. It's it's very unforgiving. Felt like trash to me. So yeah, I won't be trying it again. But basically, I don't think the recoil difference really was that impactful at all from what I noticed.
Yeah, I have not used it, but I did see a tweet from True Game Data, I believe it was, showing a before and after recoil plot, pre-buff and post-buff. And it's a very, if that recoil comparison is to be believed, it is a very minor buff to the recoil. It's like a little better, but like
yeah, I see this tweet now. You actually hardly can tell a difference.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not really that big of a deal. So when you look at all the other options you have right now for, I would say for Urzikstan and for Rebirth, I'm not messing with a Holger 556 right now. So
plus, like, not even the fact that it just has the 40, but the fact that the reload on that gun is so slow.
Oh, is it?
What is the reload speed? I mean, it certainly feels slow.
Well,
without sleight of hand, it's 4 seconds.
What?
Whereas the Subverter is... It's 3.97. The Subverter is 4.29.
Really?
What's another meta AR I could throw in there?
Look up like
something else people use.
The MCW.
Let's do a RAM.
Or RAM, yeah, that's a good one.
RAM is, let's see, RAM's going to be on the far right. RAM is 2.8.
Okay, yeah. 4 sounds really long. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got horrible damage per mag, and then it takes forever to reload.
Yeah. 4 seconds ever to reload. Yeah. So, yeah. This is a skip for now, but...
Yeah, it's not good.
I don't think there's like any use case in Warzone on any map.
I agree.
And then the M16 from Modern Warfare 2 was also buffed. It has a lot less recoil, 20% less horizontal and vertical recoil, 20% less gun kick, and 18% less visual recoil. So that is interesting. And it sounds like it would be an absolute beam. Is that relevant? Almost certainly not. And then the most interesting thing is that they have a note here as well. Changes to the M16 were released before today's game update. But in today's game update, they retroactively announced that they made a change. So unlike Infinity Ward, they're actually saying that, because Infinity Ward loved to do this. They would change how a gun works, and then 3 months later, sneak that gun change into the patch notes and pretend like they just did it, even though it's been changed in the way they said for 3 months already. So good for Raven for actually mentioning that. But also, why did you do that? Why didn't you put it in the patch notes? Maybe it just got lost in the shuffle. That's fine. But also, why are we changing the M16 in this particular way for Warzone?
Yeah. Well, didn't they buff it at the start of the season? I thought they did. What gun am I thinking of?
They buffed a lot, so maybe. It's certainly possible.
It's not coming up in the patch notes when I search M16. I swear they did. Did they not? What am I thinking of? They did the Lockman, the M13, the FR Advancer, the Razorback. I guess they didn't. Lockman, yeah, some other... Yeah, they did a lot of guns, but I guess they hadn't touched the M16 yet. Okay.
So.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm for sure going to use that.
Yeah, don't use that gun still. So there you go. But maybe they're trying to prepare us for a viable burst AR. I doubt it, but maybe. So anyway, SMGs.
Oh, wait, yeah. Is that what we're thinking of? There was some aftermarket part. What was the aftermarket part this?
Oh, that's
was
right.
There?
Good comms,
that what I'm thinking
wizard.
of?
Chill on the caps lock for sure. Cruise control for cool. But you're right. There is going to be an aftermarket part.
It didn't come up because remember in these patch notes in this link for the aftermarket parts for this season, they only listed 4 instead of the 6. So that's why it didn't come up.
Classic.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, that explains it.
That will be
M16
you're good, dude.
meta.
I'm messing with you. So if it's a full auto gun that just got all of its recoil decreased by 20%, that might be relevant when that comes out. And I remember when we were talking about it, I said this is one of the few of the 8 aftermarket parts. This is one of the few that might actually be usable and fun and interesting. Going from a burst gun to full auto, which is the correct direction to go. Don't give me an aftermarket part to make a full auto gun burst fire. Why would I ever take that? Oh, cool. It's a burst fire gun with 1 less attachment slot when I could just use it full auto. Got it. Why would we do that? But going the other direction, which they're going to be doing for the M16, that could be interesting, especially, again, if it's going to have very little recoil, which it might. So we'll see. That'll be very interesting when it comes out. So moving on. SMGs. Ram 9. So they reduced its hipfire accuracy by 10%, but they also made it ADS even slower. Okay.
People already stopped using it at the start of the season.
No one uses this gun, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, yay.
This is beating a dead SMG for sure. So Ram 9 was not worth using, and now it's still not worth using. Cool. Striker. ADS a little bit faster, 10 milliseconds faster. And then increased bullet velocity from 540 to 570. This doesn't matter, really, at all. 11 milliseconds of ADS time. That's actually kind of relevant because I guess this has pretty slow base ADS speed, 215 to 204. That could be relevant, especially on an SMG, because you're probably also using at least 1 aim down sight attachment, so that makes those more effective as well. Well, technically makes them less effective, actually. It's a percentage. But still, the bullet velocity doesn't matter at all, though. So I don't know. Striker's still probably not worth using, but they did buff it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the WSP Swarm. This is a very interesting change. Decreased flinch resistance to 0.15 newtons from 0.8 newtons.
Jesus.
So that's a massive flinch resistance nerf. However, I can't tell you at all what that means. I don't know what the average SMG's flinch resistance in newtons is. I don't know. So
yeah.
So I can't tell you. But I can tell you, going from 0.8 to less than 0.2 is a big nerf. So this thing might flinch a lot now, or it used to never flinch at all. One of those two is true.
Yeah.
So
I was going to run it too, but now they nerfed the flinch resist. I don't think I will anymore.
You can't put up with 0.15 newtons of flinch resistance?
Yeah, my SMG's got to have at least 0.75 newtons.
Yeah. Sure. Classic. Yeah, of course. So, and I did go to MIT.
Yeah, that's true.
Last,
you did.
Sniper rifles. Yeah, like we said, we already talked about this. The Moors corrected an optic misalignment, alignment causing shots to travel slightly off center. Fake news. So yeah, we already talked about that. And then let's see. The ECS Requieter Suppressor Muzzle, which is an SMG specific suppressor that does like cool, interesting things. I don't know exactly what it does.
Yeah, I still haven't tried that. I need to give that a shot.
It's now usable on all MW2 SMGs.
Hell yeah.
And it seems like I'm pretty sure it's also now or has been usable on all MW3 SMGs as well. This is one of those attachments that's like, it's new because to unlock it, you had to level a newly released gun up to level 16, and then you could put it on any gun. So it is new, but it's not like it because it's an aftermarket part. You don't see it in patch notes ever. But that's what this is. I've noticed it. I haven't looked into it very much, though. I don't know what it does. But now you can use it on all SMGs pretty much.
So it's a suppressor, so it keeps you off the minimap. You get firing aim stability, and it makes your aim down sight speed faster.
That sounds pretty attractive, actually. What are the downsides?
I'm not sure. I'm just reading this on a Reddit post, so I don't know what the actual downsides are. But it's on the new SMG, which I haven't leveled or used one time, so I don't know exactly what it does.
So once you level the new SMG, you'll be able to put this on your HRM or whatever you're using. So a suppressor that keeps you off minimap and it gives you faster ADS time. That's pretty attractive depending on the SMG. I wouldn't put it on an HRM probably because it doesn't need more aim down sight speed. And the way attachments work, because they're percentage based, the faster you ADS, the less impactful an ADS attachment's going to be. Because if I put this muzzle on and let's say it helps 10% with my aim down sight speed, well, the HRM's base aim down sight speed is 95 milliseconds. So 10% faster is going to be what? 0.9? Or wait.
Yeah.
No, that's not right. 9.5. It's going to be 9.5 milliseconds faster aim down sight speed. That is not noticeable. Like at all. It doesn't matter. But 10% aim down sight benefit on like the Subverter, which has an aim down sight speed of 400 milliseconds. Well, that's 40 less milliseconds. That's actually noteworthy. So that's something to keep in mind. So right now, I don't think this matters very much because the HRM ADS is so quick. But if and when we go to a meta, or at least have other viable SMG options that ADS a little slower, like I'm thinking of the AMR9. I don't know if it had bad ADS time or if it was just bad sprint to fire. I don't remember. But let's assume it did have bad aim down sight speed. This would be relevant for that. That would be cool. So it's an ADS attachment in a slot that you normally can't get that in. It's pretty interesting. So I like that they added this, and now you can put on MW2 SMGs as well. So there you go. And then other than that, a couple bug fixes. none of which are really relevant. And that's pretty much it. There were some other changes, though, that I think we're going to get into here with these tweets. Yeah, this is what I was thinking. Okay. So yesterday, the 17th, on Wednesday, they made a much-needed update to the Moore sniper rifle. Reduced penetration on base weapon. Photonic charge barrel will no longer provide uncapped penetration. And reduced penetration multiplier provided by the anti-materiel slug ammo. So for those of you, I don't know if we ever talked about this actually, but for those of you who didn't know, the Moore sniper rifle with that photonic charge barrel would literally shoot through anything, literally. So there were Twitter clips going around of people headshotting other people in Warzone through a mountain. So you would do full damage through mountains and like through 8 walls also simultaneously. It had like infinite penetration. It was as if there was nothing between you and someone else ever. So if you were walling, for example, this would be a really good gun to use because you could shoot literally anyone because cover didn't help. So they've changed that finally. I can't believe it took this long, but good change there, obviously. If you want to have attachments that have increased pen, I'm all for that. That's cool. But don't have it be limitless pen where I can pen the Himalayas. That's not a great idea, obviously. And even people who weren't cheating were using this in a unfun way with no outplay potential. I remember watching Iron. He was playing Ranked Resurgence using the Moors, and he would just shoot someone. They'd run into a building behind 3 walls. He would make sure to live ping them before they go inside. And because live pings persist through loss of line of sight, he would just shoot right underneath his live ping and get the full or get the down.
Dude,
it was really dumb. So good change. Obviously.
I saw a funny multiplayer clip yesterday. It was some guy, he sent a drone up and he used the drone to mark somebody. As soon as he marked the guy, he immediately got out of the drone and then ADS through just buildings through the map and shot the guy. And it was the final kill for that round. So everyone saw the replay and everyone was like, bro, this guy's cheating. It was so funny. Through buildings. Brain. Yeah. It was crazy.
That's really funny. Yeah, because the pings from recon drones last forever. So
yeah,
that's why that's a good idea. Yeah, that's funny. So anyway, yeah, that's a cute little clip. But anyways, that's good. And then also another tweet. I did not hear about this before. Maybe you can tell me more about it. They tweeted this yesterday from @COD Updates. We're investigating reports of higher than usual RAM usage on PC platforms following a recent game update. So evidently the game is using a lot more RAM than it should.
So people have been getting stuttering issues. I've seen a lot of tweets about it. I didn't have it for a while, and then all of a sudden 2 days ago, I just randomly started getting them. I'm like, these are the stuttering issues people complain about. It's not constantly. It's not constant. It will just randomly happen, like in the middle of a match. And then your game will be stuttering for 2-3 minutes or something. And yeah, I guess that's related to no matter how much RAM you have, for some people, the game is utilizing all of their RAM. So it's maxing it out. So you're at 100% RAM usage. Whether you have 32 gigs, 64, it's just simply maxing it out. So I'm glad they're working on a fix because, yeah, I guess the tweets I saw said that Reddit is like filled with these threads, like people saying theirs is so bad they basically can't even play the game because it skips all around. So maybe it's even worse if you have less RAM. Like I have 32, so maybe if you're on like 16, it becomes even worse for some odd reason and it's unplayable. But yeah, I guess it's been a fairly large issue. It's not like game breaking for me. I can still play. It's just like annoying. It's like, really, I'm getting some stutters for the next couple minutes.
Stutters suck a lot, yeah.
Yeah. So they're investigating that. Hopefully we get a fix soon.
That'll probably be fixed pretty soon. I wouldn't worry too much about that. But yeah, I didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah.
That's a weird performance issue.
Mm-hmm.
The game using more RAM than it should. Like, I've heard of memory leaks. Maybe is that what this is? Like a memory leak?
I don't really
actually know
know
what a memory leak is, actually, to be honest.
I thought memory leak usually was just kind of like RAM usage, like creep. Like people say, after playing a few hours of Tarkov, because the game has memory leak, restart it. Because it'll just, as you continue to play, you'll end up using a little bit more and more RAM or something. But yeah, I'm not too sure what it is either, really. Yeah. But this is just putting it right at 100% usage, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, I would expect them to fix this pretty soon. But if you are like stuttering a bunch, that's why. So moving on to news and upcoming changes. Not too much more to get into here, but a W from Activision, which we don't see often. Tell us about it, buddy.
Yeah, so if you guys remember, I don't remember how long ago that was, 1 to 2 months probably, we talked about how Scump and Hector, the owner of Optic Gaming, were suing Activision for things related to the CDL buy-in, basically. And, for like Hector, it was related to, he basically was forced to sell Optic because of the buy-in cost. It was a lot, we talked about it. But so basically, as of a couple days ago, Activision has announced a new agreement with Call of Duty League teams to provide better revenue sharing options. So they go on to say, for the better part of the year, we've been working with team owners on a new approach that sets us up for mutual success. Today, I am excited to share details from our updated team deal structure to help secure the longevity of competitive Call of Duty. So here's the main point. Outstanding entry fees will be eliminated, and any fees previously collected from the teams will be returned in full. Well, we paused collection of these payments years ago. I didn't know that was the case. We are permanently removing this obligation while also injecting capital back into the league. So, according to Charlie Intel, that number was 27 million. I knew it was like around 25. They said 27 million. So they're going to receive that entry fee back, and then they'll also no longer be required to pay other fees to remain in the CDL. They also say teams will earn increased revenue tied to the sale of their in-game merchandise, so their bundles. Recognizing that hosting large-scale events are vital to teams in the CDL community, we will increase existing event subsidy amounts for teams organizing live in-person events such as the majors, opens, and champs. Supposedly that just happened. I think it was one of the teams was supposed to host an event last weekend, 2 weekends ago, 3 weekends ago, and it got canceled last minute. And supposedly what I read on Twitter was, I don't remember what team it was, but I guess they're not that popular, and like they thought they were going to be able to fund it. And basically the tournament was coming up and they couldn't afford it, so they just canceled it. So then that event, I think, was just held online or something instead.
They still did a LAN, but with no audience. That's what I remember.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Which is hilarious.
Carolina,
by the way.
Yep.
Just a couple of guys rolling up to some basement, and they're like, all right, let's LAN, I guess. And they intended on it being this whole like crazy advertiser-fueled spectator experience. And then, can you imagine if there was like a Laker game coming up and it was going to be at the Staples Center, and then the Lakers were like, you guys didn't buy enough tickets. We're just going to go to the YMCA and just do a game there instead, and no one will watch. Like, can you imagine that? I don't know. Yeah. I just thought it was so funny.
I just don't understand how they don't have money to put these things on. I mean, how expensive have these things gotten? Because I remember back in the day, dude, watching massive LANs put on by some company, and all these teams would fly to Europe, and they would all set up, and they'd just be in rows and rows of tables set up. There would be like actually 300 people in a warehouse in a LAN tournament for some game.
Yeah.
It's like they did it. We did it fine for years. And it's just now this stuff has become so expensive. I guess it's just, they probably just hiring all the talent, all the employees behind the scenes now. But this used to be so common. And now a Call of Duty League team doesn't have the money to put on a LAN tournament. It's wild to me.
It is. Yeah.
But
yeah, it is.
Orgs don't make money. So anyways. And then the last point was the teams will receive a 2-year minimum guarantee of revenue so they can continue investing into the Call of Duty League with more peace of mind. So yeah, shout out to Scump and Hex for suing Activision. That's the only reason this changed, by the way. So they did, in fact, get something done.
Yeah. It certainly seems that way. It's pretty suspicious timing, if not.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. This is great, though. Obviously, this is great for pretty much everyone except maybe Activision, but even probably in the long run, good for Activision as well. So the question I have really is, what was the impetus for doing this? And it was probably because the CDL was not making enough money for the orgs, and they just knew the orgs would not be able to pay that $27 million entry fee.
Yeah.
They're like, they can't pay it ever. So like, why even do it at this point? So this is really good though for the orgs themselves, obviously. Not having to pay the fee is really good. Getting a refund on whatever they have paid is really good, of course. And increasing subsidy amounts means they're more likely to host a LAN with an audience, so there should be more LANs. That's probably part of the impetus for this, is that Activision wants more LAN events because they make more advertiser revenue off a LAN event. And we talked about this maybe a month ago. The number of LAN events in CDL from like 5 years ago compared to now was like 10%. So many fewer LANs. So that subsidy thing makes sense, and that'll make it more likely that those happen. And then revenue guarantee is interesting as well. Now, to be clear, that should be good for the players in the orgs, but the team is the one getting the 2-year minimum guarantee of revenue, not the players. So I think the idea there is that Activision does a rev guarantee to Optic, and then Optic takes some or most of that money and gives it as salaries to their players, or an increase in salary to their players. It's probably the idea, but I mean, at least according to this, it doesn't say the teams have to do that. So they might just not increase salaries and then, spend more money on booking more venues to get more ad revenue themselves. I don't know. Pretty interesting, but still overall pretty good for everyone, because more LAN events, it means more money for all the orgs and Activision, which means a better funded CDL, so more employees and stuff. So that could mean more events happen, more tournaments happen, more LANs happen. You attract better talent for the CDL, etc. And pretty exciting. Surprised they did it, but it's good. Yeah.
Same,
Activision.
yeah. And the Toronto Ultra ownership group announced that basically, as part of this 2-year guarantee of revenue, they're giving all of the teams a one-time $2 million payment. So that's how that's working. Activision's just writing them all a check for $2 million.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting.
That 2 mil might be, because 27 minus 2 is 25. And it says it removes their $25 million entry fee. Sounds like they've paid 2 mil toward the entry fee, and they had 25 remaining, but they got their 2 mil back. That's what that sounds like to me. I don't know though.
Yeah.
You could be right. Either way, whatever. It's good. So W. Yeah, pretty much no matter what. And that's pretty much it. Last thing I just wanted to very quickly talk about. There's a new video game called Gray Zone Warfare that is not out, but it's getting its first ever semi-public alpha testing right now. We were watching some gameplay on Twitch of some streamers playing it. It's in like a closed alpha and or beta. I don't know the difference. But the only people who are playing it, who have access rather, are like content creators. And it's basically it's one of these like so-called Tarkov killers. But unlike most of them, it actually looks pretty good. And I think the biggest selling point of it is that it's on Unreal Engine 5. I don't know why this is such a big deal, but it is. That's what everyone's talking about, is like, oh, this is on Unreal Engine 5. And to be fair, looks very good. And it runs amazingly smoothly for being in an alpha state. And it looks really good too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks interesting. Very bare bones. No idea.
Just some new frogs?
No clue. I think they might be some new frogs, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, Unreal Engine 5 does look nice. It's got like good like physics kind of is how their games always look like. You run through bushes and like the way things sway.
The leaves like move.
And the wind affecting it. Yeah. The shadows cast from trees. A lot of that ends up looking really nice. Like even like when you're flying in the helicopter to be like dropped somewhere, like if you're looking at a teammate who has a beard, like his facial hair is all like moving in the wind and stuff. So it does well with a lot of that. Their games just generally look very good. And I've heard it's been playing well too in terms of frame rate and all that. But yeah, looks interesting. It's not that similar to Tarkov where like you have to get out. It's way more similar actually probably to something like DayZ.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know where they're going with it. It's like open world PvP, PvE / extraction shooter. So like you have loot stored back at a main base. So if you die, you just spawn back there. But unlike Tarkov, you don't have like 40 minutes to extract or just lose everything in the raid. You can stay in a raid and run around for 8 hours if you want. But if you did a bunch of missions and then suddenly die, you lose all of that progress and whatever gear you had. So people want to extract through that obviously. But yeah, it's got promise for sure. It's very early on though. It needs a ton of content to stay relevant and it doesn't have nearly that much right now, but looks promising. Looks like it could be fun.
For sure.
Yeah, it looks like a fun game to play with friends. It'd be a great time to play with some friends. So yeah.
Would Gabe and Ben get it?
Oh, for sure. I already texted them about it and told them to watch gameplay of it.
That can be the game where the reunion happens. Yeah.
The old reunion. Yeah.
The old REU.
And then, as Mike was saying, the X Defiant, there's another playtest this week, and I believe it goes from the 19th to the 21st or 22nd. It's some sort of server playtest. Come on, man. It's going to be a good game.
Yeah, surely.
What do they call it? Our server test session. Yeah, April 19th to the 21st. So, cool.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, Gray Zone looks cool. X Defiant will flop almost immediately. So which I've been saying for 6 months. So keep that in mind. But I will dance on the corpse of X Defiant on this podcast when it happens. Don't worry.
Will you?
Yes, we'll bring it back up again because it's going to launch. People are going to stream it for maybe 5 days. And then everyone's going to be back on whatever game they were playing before because it lacks any depth. It is a service level game at best. And we've graduated from arcade shooters 15 years ago. We need more now. So anyways, despite that, Gray Zone, on the other hand, does have depth and is interesting. Yeah. And people, because I hadn't seen any gameplay of it, but I've been hearing about it a lot in like Tarkov chats and stuff. And like on the Tarkov Twitter, corner that I follow. People talking about Gray Zone as like the next potential whatever Tarkov killer or like Tarkov clone or something. And like you said, it's really not it's not as comparable to Tarkov as it is to like DayZ. Yeah, no, for sure.
It's got UI elements and some gameplay mechanics. That's the same as Tarkov. How it's got like the different types of body armors. Like it's got the same body armors. It has the same helmets. Backpack system where you can get bigger backpacks to hold more. You have a secure container where you can keep ammo and meds that you don't lose if you die. It's like the same mechanics even as like opening an MRE and eating it and like using painkillers, all that. But the actual gunplay and everything else is a lot more similar to like a DayZ or actually like Arma too. And gunplay is very similar to Arma. Yeah.
Like, yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say is like, it does have similarities to Tarkov in that the UI is almost the same. Actually, like you open your inventory or backpack or whatever, and you have your character model on the left, and then you have the gear he's wearing in the slots, and then you have what you have equipped in your like backpack and rigs and all that stuff, and you have a secure container like Tarkov. So all of that is very Tarkov, and even the weapon like modification system is exactly like Tarkov. So each gun has like actually 30 different parts that you can equip, unequip, buy, swap out. If you want to put on a laser, you can do that, but it has to have the slot, blah, blah, blah. That's all extremely Tarkov. But in terms of the gameplay loop, it's not very similar to Tarkov at all. At least based on what I've seen so far. So that could change, but I don't know. And then it's PvEVP, which is also like Tarkov, I guess, because there are scavs and real players. But it looks cool. It looks really good. And unlike X Defiant, I am excited to play Gray Zone. I think that will be a fun, like pretty casual game that I would really only play when like friends are on. But I would play it and enjoy it for sure.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if it will have wipes like Tarkov does.
Yes, Crash was talking about that.
Oh,
I don't remember what he said, but somebody asked him in his chat, and he said something about how the wipes will work. But yeah.
So anyway, all right, that's it, boys and girls. Hope you enjoyed. We will be back on Saturday unless the IRS needs more taxes, and we will be talking about something. We had an idea and we both forgot it before this episode, so I think we have it written down somewhere. So we have something planned. We just don't know what it is yet. But yeah, that'll be happening. Episode 419 on 420. God bless and stay humble.
Stay humble.